Welcome to Eden Hope Academy. We are in week 17. I'm Kim Glenowski and I'm so glad to be with you. And we're going to start with our Bible verse, and it's one of my favorites. So let's just dig into it together. And this is from the king of Tyre. And this is a country that's a little bit north of Israel at the time. And he is really welcoming the ability to help out Solomon on building the temple. And he has the desire to help Solomon because his dad, Solomon's dad, David, had paved the way and built a relationship with this king, knowing that when he died, that the king would be able to help out his son for building the temple that God had placed on David's heart. So he says, I am sending you a master craftsman named Hiram-Abi, who is extremely talented. His mother is from the tribe of Dan in Israel, and his father is from Tyre. He is skilled at making things from gold, silver, bronze, and iron, and he also works with stone and wood. He can work with purple, blue, and scarlet cloth and fine linen. Wow. So here is a person who God has given passions to and abilities to make all kinds of amazing things. And he's going to be one of the leaders in the building of Solomon's temple. And his mom is an Israelite, but his dad is from Tyre. So down here, I want you to draw a picture of him creating something magnificent for Solomon. And then I want to talk to you about your passions. It's so important to figure out what God has in store for you. And sometimes it's lots of things, just like Hiram-Abi. He had lots of things that interested in him. But did he just like play with something for a little bit and then move on to something else? No, he became really good at each thing. And so I want you to talk to your mom and dad about things that you can become really good at, maybe like whittling or woodworking or art or something that would really build up your passion, because you never know where God is going to use that in the future, because God used everything from Hiram-Abi and he'll use everything from you too. So cool. So draw that picture, and then I'm going to go on this one. So simple. It is David killed Goliath, David killed Goliath, David killed Goliath, and he did it with a single stone. Wow, that was simple, wasn't it? So let's go through the story real quick, because that's way too short of a story. So as you remember from the Bible, David was one of his dad. Do you remember his dad's name? His dad was Jesse, and his dad's name was Obed, and his dad's name was Boaz. So we know that line came down to David, and David he was anointed by Samuel to become king. So the first king of Israel, do you remember him? His name was Saul. And the people begged and begged and begged and whined and complained and moaned that they wanted a king like the other nations. And God told the prophet Samuel and other prophets to tell the people that they have something much greater. They have the word of God coming through prophets to tell them what to do. But the people didn't want that. They wanted to be like the other countries, and they demanded a king. And so God chose them a king. He chose Saul. And Saul was tall and handsome and all that. And so he was king, and he was anointed king. But really soon after becoming king, he defeated an enemy, and then he was supposed to wait on Samuel to come to give a sacrifice for another battle. And he got scared. He started going, I don't know if I should work. I don't know if I should wait or not wait. And what was happening was his army was starting to scatter away. And so he got really frightened. And so instead of doing what he was told to do, which was wait on Samuel, he did the sacrifice himself. And that was really saying, I can be just like Samuel. I can be just like the person God appointed for this. And that didn't sit well with God, because God gives us ways that we have jurisdiction over things, that we have, that we are supposed to be in charge of. And then he tells us not to get involved with other things. And that was one of those things that he gave the making of the sacrifice. That was specifically for a Levite, and it was specifically for Samuel to do. And when Saul overstepped that, when Saul was like, well, I can be that too, God took the reign from him. Now, that doesn't mean that he suddenly wasn't king anymore. Not at all. In fact, he was king for many more years. It just means that he was no longer, that power of being king was really not there anymore. That connection with God that he needed to really serve well as king wasn't there anymore. So that was a long story. So now this story, David and Goliath, this was when David had been told by his dad to go to where the battle was taking place. Now remember, David was a shepherd, and while he was a shepherd, he was out in the fields for a long time by himself. And he had to take care of his sheep all by himself. And so to do that, one time a bear attacked and he was able to kill the bear, and another time a lion attacked his sheep and he was able to defeat that lion. And so even though he was small in stature, he was kind of shorter, and he wasn't like what the people thought was going to be like, oh wow, this is like a king guy, the tall Saul. His dad told him to go and check up on his older brothers who were in battle. And so he walks there and he brings some food and he says, hey brothers, how's it going? And guess what one of his brothers said is, what are you doing here? You're kind of pathetic. It wasn't nice to him at all. He said very strong words that were not kind to David at all. And so David gave him his food, and then he asked around and he's like, so what's happening around here? And the Israelites were saying, well, the way we win wars is we can either everyone battle each other and a lot of people die. Or you can have one person battle one person from each team, and the victor gets to control the loser. And so it just depends on one person. So they decided to do it that way, but they had a giant. He was very, very, very tall, and his name was Goliath. That's who the Philistines had. And the Israelites didn't have very many tall people. And the tall people that were too scared to fight Goliath. They were scared to death. And so no one was fighting. They were just standing there looking at each other every day. And so every day the Philistine would come down, and every day the Israelites would just look at him and go, oh, I don't know what to do. And so David was like, well, I can do it. And so everyone was like, no, you can't. And so David was like, yes, I can, because God is with me. And so Saul said, well, then you should wear my heavy armor. And David tried on his heavy armor, and he was like, no, this does not work for me. And so he took off his heavy armor, and he went and he just got, I think it was 5 stones, and he put them into his little side thing, and he took out one, and he did it with his slingshot, and he walloped Saul right in the noggin, and Saul died. And so that, you would think that would be like, everyone would be like, yay, David. But the next part of the story is apparently he just goes back with his parents. Or he doesn't. He plays the lyre for Saul. So so it's not until later in his life that people start to really recognize him as the king that he is. So in this, it's just draw a picture of young David preparing to battle with Goliath. So what do you think David would be like? Would he like, oh, I'm so scared? Or was he confident that God was with him? And what gave him that confidence? Was it his prior experiences of killing the bear and the lion and protecting his flock and knowing that God was with him? Was that what it was? So think about David. Was he going, oh, I'm so scared? Or was he walking in with confidence to go after Goliath? What do you think? So draw that right there. Okay, so let's go to Link It to Me. It says, why did God tell David to wait on building the temple? Well, it was because David had killed so many people, and God wanted this temple to be about him and not be built by someone who had done so much bloodshed. And next, what did David do when he was told that he could not build the temple? Do you remember that story? God said, no, you're not to build the temple. Did David sulk? Was he like Ahab and put his face to the wall? I'm going to sulk. No, not at all. He figured out that he could make strategic alliances, like with the king of Tyre, and he could draw plans for the temple, and he could pray for the temple. He could prepare his son for the temple, and he could make sure there's plenty of money for the temple. So he could do everything else in preparation, And yet he wasn't going to get any glory for it, was he? No. But it didn't matter because he was doing something as a precious gift of what God had told him to do. So it was amazing. He didn't sulk when he was told no. He found ways to make sure it would happen in the future. Okay, when did Solomon start building the temple? Almost as soon as he became king, very soon after he became king. So he was ready with that task to build that temple. And the next, how did God prepare Hiram-Abi to help Solomon? Well, one of the things it says is later in 2 Chronicles, it says that his mom was a widow, which means his dad had died. And so that made me kind of think maybe he had to support his family starting very early. Maybe that's why he was so good at so many things, because he had started out earlier. That's just a thought of mine. But he had to have been very diligent no matter what, right? He had to have worked very hard at each of the things. And do you think that he loved everything that he tried? Probably not. If he loved working with cloth, maybe he didn't love working with silver or bronze as much or something like that. We don't know. But just because he he was really good at things doesn't mean that he loved them all. Just remember that. You might not love everything that you do. Now here we have Hiram-Abi building, and then we have one of the statues that was like something that they would have had in the temple. All right, let's go into science. Archimedes studied physics, which is a science about energy and the way things move. He discovered a new physics law about the way things sink in water, lever systems, and water screws. Archimedes. He studied physics. What a great guy. I want you to try to find some books on Archimedes this week, and I might try to post some videos on him too. But he had some amazing things that he invented. And he had his cousin was a king of Pyre, I think. And he had this dilemma. He had asked someone to make him a golden crown, but he suspected that the workman had not put all of the gold that he gave him into the crown. And so he asked Archimedes to figure it out, and Archimedes thought about it and thought about it and thought about it and thought about it and couldn't think about how it was to be done. And then he had this moment where he went, Eureka! And he was so excited that he was taking a bath in a bathhouse, and he ran out into the streets with nothing on. Oh my goodness, Archimedes. And he figured it out. And the way he figured it out was that he put the crown into a bucket of water, and then he put the same amount of gold that the crown should have had in it in a bucket of water, and he was able to tell by the amount that the water rose that the one without the gold did not, or the one that the crown did not have as much gold as the king had given the craftsman. The craftsman got caught, and he never thought he'd get caught. The thing that he did that was amazing was he was able to move ships using pulley systems, which is these little bitty cranks that he could go like this and just go do, 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 and take an enormous ship filled with cargo and lift it up and move it to the dock. It was amazing. It was just all kinds of pulleys that he used. And the water screw is basically how to get water from a lower place to a higher place. And basically, if you create a screw where the water goes into the screw and keeps going, you can keep on turning it, and the water will go up the screw and go in. And so guess what? We're going to learn about Nebuchadnezzar and the Hanging Gardens in several weeks. And not only are you going to make a screw this week, but then you're going to use your screw again for Nebuchadnezzar and his Hanging Garden. So pretty cool stuff. So draw an invention of Archimedes. And I do hope that you'll go to the library and find some books, because they are fascinating about him. And then finally we have Greece. The Aegean island lies to the east of the mainland, the Ionian Sea to the west, the Cretan Sea, and the Mediterranean Sea to the south. So what I want you to draw, oops, I dropped a pen. What I want you to draw here is the Mediterranean Sea. So you can see it really little bitty here. And so I want you to draw the Mediterranean Sea right there. And then I want you to draw just the boot of Italy. So if you look really, really closely here, you can see the boot of Italy. And then want you to travel east just a little bit, and I want you to draw all kinds of dots and little lines, and that will be Greece, because it's a lot of little islands. So I want you to do that right there, okay? So I will see you next week. Make sure you watch your videos and learn more about Archimedes, and I'm just so glad that you're doing such a great job at Eden Hope Academy. I'll see you later.